others also get impacted as they get because of the spin-off effects and the sort of effects on allied industries. Just one more point before I very quickly, very briefly introduce our speakers and hand the mic over to them. That we are recording this meeting because many of our Sathis, many comrades have not been able to join, and they've requested specifically because everyone wants to also learn from this. This is also meant to be a sharing session because we are all experiencing it, but we kind of need to understand how it is impacting people in different parts of the country as well. Okay, so very quickly, I would like to, we've got 6 speakers today. So we've got Geeta Ramakrishnan, who is been a trade unionist for several decades, and she's part of the National Coordination Committee for Construction Workers with Krishna Iyer as the chairperson, and Subhash Bhatnagarji. She's been a trade unionist for a very long time, and she's worked with different sets of workers, primarily in Tamil Nadu, but in other parts of the country as well. And she's also worked with amongst unorganized workers, which is how we've introduced her, that she's associated with the Federation of Unorganized Workers. So I would like to, and since Geetaji is traveling, I would like to give her the first word. So Geetaji, could you tell us please about could you provide a bird's eye view of the impact that these tariffs have had, not just in August, but they started really back in April. And we were all reading and discussing the reportage around it, and there are some slightly contradictory things that are also being. Yeah, some are being told, some people have been reporting that job losses, layoffs have not started so far, whereas other reports have come in that they have started. And also, just a final kind of pointer to you, we've had major shocks in the last 10 years, whether it was demonetization, rollout of GST, how it happened, and COVID. As compared to those shocks, how does this one compare in in what you are seeing? Geetaji?
I just want to say, a few kind of observations which is being made by the Tamil Nadu Textile and Common Workers Union. It is a union of garment women, and mainly they have, taken the struggle for against sexual harassment forward, and it's a kind of model agreement that they have signed, etc., at a world level. And also, I have been, while talking to her, Divya, what one hears is that about in Tamil Nadu alone, about 30,000 have lost. That is one thing. And also, they are saying even the interstate migrant labor affected. There is the overtime has been completely cut. So, so overtime is they're not lunch only.
Your audio is breaking up. You might have to repeat the last point that you said. I think there's an issue with the connection with Geetaji. I think she's.
Yeah, I think there is some issue with our connection.
Okay. Okay. Bhargav, can you try her separately and see if she can join again? In the meantime, maybe we can start with Raghu sir.
Sure. I'll let you
Okay.
know.
Okay. So there seems to be some problem with the connection that Geeta ji is having. She's traveling. She's informed us earlier, but we wanted to give her the opportunity to start because she was in between places. We can perhaps go to Mr. K. Raghunathan.
Sorry,
Okay.
see, I'm traveling by train. That is
Yes.
the problem. So the
Yes. Yes.
connection is
Please,
bad.
please go ahead.
I just conclude it. It's a very short thing I wanted to say.
Yeah.
So,
Please take your time.
in normal, orders,
Hello, Geeta ji. Hello. Usman, shall we wait for Geeta ji or should we go to the next speaker?
I think आप उनसे एक बार अलग से बात कर लीजिए and see if there is possible for her to join. In the meantime, we'll start with Mr. Raghunathan. If she can join in the meantime, it's good that she can come back. So
Sure.
sorry for this disruption in the beginning, but as it happens, Geeta ji is traveling, and so her connection is glitchy. But we have Mr. K. Raghunathan with us, who is popularly known as MSME Raghu. He's an engineer and an entrepreneur himself, and in the past he's been the president of All India Manufacturers Organization, where during the demonetization and GST introduction times, he had sort of been the voice of.
yeah. So let me conclude by saying that even Diwali bonus is affected, and that is a very big thing for the garment workers because it is the Diwali bonus which really helps them to, buy clothes for the entire family, all that. That's what they do.
Mhm.
This year it is not possible. This year it's gone. And even
And
those who are working. And the other important thing is, because OT is cut and even those who are working, they are unable to pay the EMI for these things. It's a very, very difficult state for them. Together to and get and so that is the uh, I don't know whether I'm audible, but
again, the last part of what you said got cut. We could hear till the Diwali bonus and the OT not being given. Then you were saying something about they have not been able to repay their. I believe you were going to say EMIs or no, no. So we don't have. Since again we don't have a good connection. Uh,
I think, Usman, we can go to
yeah, we,
Raghunathan, sir.
yes. So we'll have Mr. Raghunathan take the next speak next. He's, as I was saying, he was the past president of All India Manufacturers Organization, where he was the sort of advocated for several industries during the demonetization GST rollout. He's also the national chairman of Association of Indian Entrepreneurs, which is under one umbrella. He's also the convener of the consortium of Indian associations. So essentially uniting over 60 MSME associations. So in a sense, he's been the voice of both small employers and employees and a bridge between their concerns and policymakers. So thank you, sir, for making time. And could you explain to us, I mean, so all of us know that there are MSMEs are very important to our economy and they are, large in numbers, they employ a large number of people. But also, how is it that they are crucial to the makeup of the sectors that have been impacted by the tariffs? If you can start with that.
Good evening, friends, and thank you, Usman. I need to convey that the Trump tariff is not the only thing that's really killing the micro enterprises. The word MSME has been distorted. Even a corporate entity has come into the ambit of MSMEs. The micro enterprise, they changed the nomenclature from 5 crores to 10 crores recently. Is 99.2% of the whole country. So we will not generally speak as MSME, we will speak as micro and small enterprises because in my opinion, they need to be dealt with and they cannot be combined with the major industries or the bigger industries. Now the Trump tariff is one which has suddenly come in. It's now 3 weeks. 3 weeks since why it was implemented, how it was implemented, everybody. But what we do after implementation, what any government for that matter, if they are in power and if there is a national game. Hello? Hello?
Sir, the audio is not at all clear. It's not audible.
The audio is not clear. Is it clear now?
I think if you're slightly closer to the mic, it is becoming better, but its modulation is keeping on changing.
Oh, okay. Are you able to hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, let me try. And from when you want me to repeat again? Next time, Luthman, just raise your hand if I'm not audible so that I immediately change myself.
Sure.
Thank you. So the Trump tariff, which has been in force for now 3 weeks. 3 weeks is pretty long time. And the government is not talking about what is that they are likely to do. Even yesterday, Trump is talking about the action of tax on the hiring of Indian professionals under IT industry. Now, on one side, he is instructing the EU to increase the tariff on the India and China because they buy from the Russian oil. On the other hand, the Indian government is completely silent in terms of interest of the players. Now, one of the data which says is the engineering goods which will be impacted will be about 20 billion. That is 1.8 lakh crore. The textile sector is 95,000 crores. Gems and jewellery, auto components, chemicals, food and agriculture, seafood, handicrafts and furniture, leather industries, and the toy industry. Now, all of them come under, most of them come under the high intensive labor contented industries. They are not automated. Now, if you take textile for that matter, then you have a different value chain in the textiles. So if you are talking about retailing, first is the fiber, second is the spinning, third is the weaving and knitting, fourth is bleaching. Yeah?
Yes, we can hear you. So may I make one small request?
Yeah.
There is a small issue with the audio. If you speak slowly, we can follow you. When you're speaking slightly faster, it is coming through differently. And the other thing is that we can also try, if it persists, we can try switching off the video. It might sometimes help.
Okay, let me do that.
I have at least been able to follow broadly what you're saying, but sometimes the exact full sentence is not coming through. So that's why I'm asking you to speak a little slowly. Sorry for that.
No, sure, unless you brief me. Now, I hope we get it better now. So we have 6 value chains in the textile industry: fiber, spinning, weaving and knitting, bleaching, dyeing, printing, finishing, makeup, and then the retail. Some of the large export may happen to larger companies, but they all depend on smaller, micro, and entrepreneur-driven enterprises to supply them at the back end. Now, we expect that Trump's tariff alone in this country dispense 3 crores of employment opportunities. The numbers are not small. We must understand this is a gravity of a situation. On one side, IT industry is going through various changes because of the AI technology development, chatbots, and whatnot. TCS withdrew from more than 12,000. It is about 70. Now everybody is falling in line. And if this tariff on the IT industry also comes up, then India will be collapsing parts. 21 days over. Nobody knows what is the relief government is talking about. It was clarified this morning at Chennai by the Honorable Finance Minister that the GST reform has got nothing to do with the Trump's tariff. That means what is to be done for the insulation? We are not sure. On one side, we hear dilly-dallying aspects. Somebody says, I called 4 times, but I'm not able to reach out to him. Somebody says, I'm waiting for his call and I'll be too glad to talk to him. This is not the time you play with words. This is the time you play with actions. The people down the line, like mentioning about the Tirupur market, the people are really suffocating. Now, 3 things happen when your sudden jolt is happening. There are people who have dispatched the material which is in transit, don't know what is going to happen. Some are being dumped on the sea if it is perishable goods. Second is there are people who are still lying with them. Status of that. The third is work in progress. The fourth is orders placed, but the materials have not come in. We don't know whether the orders will continue. The orders will be. Hello? Hello?
Yes, please carry on.
Yeah. We never know. Whole mechanism of micro entrepreneurs are living in a fear of psychosis. Will they be able to survive? This month, 15th is come. Already EMI has been removed by the bank. The bank, they are working capital. Nobody is lending them additional money. LCs have stopped expiring. We are not able to know where to go and get credit lines. The fixed cost is continuing to go up. Whether it is a EB bill, whether it is a rent bill, whether it is salary payments, whether it is property tax, everything, because we are at half yearly end. Everything is coming on the way. The government of India did one fantastic thing under the word called GST reform. Just when the whole nation was wanting the job working GST to be reduced from 12% to 5%, they increased it from 12% to 18%. Who was hit on this? Most of the micro entrepreneurs were completely finished off with this. These buy the materials from somewhere, finish it, and give it back to the corporates or the larger company or the next. They work on a margin of They get their payment with 90 days credit. Sorry, 90 days or 120 days. Though on paper, the government of India says 45 days, all MSME payments must be paid. It doesn't happen in reality for job workers. Now, they are asked to pay 18 whether they get their money. Assume 3 months is their due of receiving payment. 3 times 18%, 54% is blocked. Yeah, their margin is 2%. Do you really think anybody can survive under this? It is impossible. I think it can be a direct by the government of India saying, we don't want micro enterprises to survive in this country. We have tried many things to kill you or dislocate you. You are still able to bounce back. An external force also make a demand for you, and let's see whether you survive this attack. But the biggest challenge, my dear friends, is the informal working sector, which is the major employment creation in this country. Nearly 20 crore sector will now find no place to work. Imagine what happened at Nepal. Imagine what happened at Sri Lanka. Imagine what happened in Bangladesh. People who are young, no opportunities for them to survive. They don't know what their future is in place. They are feeling insecure in their life, and they don't know what the government is coming to their rescue. That's how they went onto the street. It was like, let my one eye go, I want your two eyes kind of a feeling. India must realize that the Trump tariff is one of the most important aspects which should be dealt with topmost. Somebody may say we should not fall at the leg. If not this market, we will develop X market, Y market. All this is fine. We are not saying how you should handle Mr. Trump. You are the best judge to do that. But all what we are saying is your action or inaction has given us a penalty. Please save us. Please insulate us. Please give us a relief. And that relief doesn't seem to be coming into the picture. Now, we also hear that government is likely to sign the trade deal in a very short while. Assume there are 9 countries who are doing surplus trade with United States who all have lower tariffs. In the textile sector, for that matter, biggest competition is going to be from Bangladesh and Indonesia. And they are working shifts a day. And Indian textile people are working not even 30% of their time. That is only to keep the skeleton staff alive because the finished products are stored. Where even if you get the relief from the Trump government, we may not get the full order in place. We might have lost the business. We should have at least, right, is that penalty tax, which is 25%. Then the gap would have been only 19% to 26%. We could have increased the RODTEP, which is the export incentive. We could have reduced some cost element aspects. We could have extended some credit line to or the packing credit to the people. We would have crossed the bridge. When do we prepare ourselves? We prepare before an event is happening. If Chennai is getting a storm next week, people try today by keeping all the emergency reliefs in store, moving the people from the low-end area into a high-end area, taking over all the Kalyana Mandapams and preparing the food packets for them, keeping the boats in place to save the people. Government is supposed to be prepared. Here, we are completely unprepared. We have killed the economy of India. And we still say we are the fastest. No, Now, it is the fastest going corporate. The GST relief, which has been given entirely given only to the corporate industry, nothing for micro entrepreneurs. Micro entrepreneurs, how they will be able to compete with them? They were earlier selling at 5% or 0. Now, the big companies have been made to come down from 12 to 18% to 5% or 0%. Now, they will finish the market. Now, they will reduce the price for the next 1 month. Make sure that all the local enterprises, local traders, everybody is wiped off, and then they will jack up the prices. Are we not seeing this now in the market? Today, you call a plumber or an electrician or replace a tube light, he will charge you 250 rupees. Because that's how urban defined the charges for the people. Now, following that, even the local electricians and plumbers have started demanding the same price. That is what is happening in the taxi market, auto rickshaw market. The Ola and Uber changed the configuration of the people's mindset and then fixed it and had higher level surge values. And that is exactly what the local taxi drivers and the auto wallas were doing. They were charging little, some 10 rupees above the meter. Here, they are legally charging you surge fine. Now they are also asking you how much is the tips you want to pay. 25%, 30% tips. So we are now being in the prisoner in the hands of the people. Technology development, app-based people. Now, Indian youth have been reduced to delivery agents or syndicate partners, creating profit for these big corporate companies, earning pittance. And is this an employment opportunity? No, this is a survival opportunity for the youth. What will be their future 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line? If their health is affected, if they are not able to work, there is no social security. The government is yet to decide on the social security of gig working. The hire and fire everywhere. We are talking about 12 hours working policy coming into the picture. Now we are going towards the corporate mindset. Work and pay. No work, no pay. This is not the way you treat humans as a machines. We have started attaching or detaching human touches. We have started behaving like treating robotics. We are talking about automation. There is no fear. There is no feelings. There is no attachments. There is no loyalties. All this has become a backseat. If you work, I pay. If you don't work, I don't pay. It's easy for the government, the company. Because end of the day, the guy who is going to run to deliver 10 minutes, he is a poor aggregator. For 10 rupees earning or 15 rupees earning, he is risking his life. No such over matters. Trump has now made India realize where their backbone is hit. The MSME being only for eyewash purpose talk. There is so ever manner. What all this government could have done at this situation, not today, 3 weeks back or 6 weeks back when the 50% tariff was coming into the force. What happened? We lost all those times. We didn't lose time. The politicians were running around with China and Russia and talking about some other international politics, leaving the main game. My dear friends, national companies will also lose its value. The days are not far. Privatization will take place. And the private enterprises will be either owned by 5 big corporates in this country or by foreign entities. And none of them able to come to the rescue of human touches, human values, human efficacies and loyalties. Trump tariff is, they are not realizing. Usman, go ahead and ask me.
Yes, yes. I was just going to prompt you about the time, but thank you for completing within the time. Friends, Mr. Raghunathan will have to leave us in another 5 minutes. So if there are any questions for him, we can take them right now. Otherwise, what we'll do is, because the audio was also unclear a little bit, some of us have been taking notes. So we will, after Raghu sir is done, questions, we will just summarize and translate the main points that he has said just now. So are there any questions just now for Raghu sir?
Was the audio still very bad, Usman?
It was slightly glitchy, but we've been taking notes, so we'll summarize your points just after this.
I'm so sorry for all the participants. I don't know why, but I'm so sorry.
I just have one question. What is
Yes,
the
Tejas.
top two things that you would like to see the government do at this time in terms of policy, sir? What's the big ask?
Big ask is very small. Actually, don't tinker with the MSMEs. Leave them at peace. That's enough. Don't say you are helping MSME and actually you are giving pains to MSME. That's first point. The second point, to be specific, extend credit line for getting with the export. Second point, give them packing credit. Third point, make sure you make space available for storing their finished materials so that the workplace continues to be used for the regular activities. The fourth point is, like BLI, should give the export-based incentive for small-scale industries. The fifth point is, like employment generation incentive for corporates, the government should immediately announce employment retention incentive for MSME exporters. You must prevent the drain. You cannot speak about additions right now. We have to drain from the companies and reduce their actual cost of fixed costs to the extent possible. Give them funds to liquidate their stock. Give them money or an export avenues to resell in the market. This is all the government should do right now. Even a child will know that this is necessary for them to do. The banks must not squeeze. Give them the moratorium during the COVID stimulus period. Emergency credit line was extended for 6 months without insisting on the EMIs. Otherwise, these fellows will become purely an NPA and they will not be able to access money from anywhere. So we have to give ECGLS bank moratorium. We have to give packing credit. We have to give new market generation schemes. We have to give them space to store materials. We have to increase their GST for the micro enterprises from 40 lakh ceiling to 1 crore ceiling, so that they are able to stand on their feet and compete in the market and sell the materials which they have in hand. Their rhythm is killed.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you for elaborating that for us. And thank you for making time to join us, even though you have other commitments. We will be summarizing what Raghu sir has said a little later. We would like to get one more speaker in first, so that we have a macro kind of picture of the issue before I come to Comrade Vaida Nizam after this.
Thank you for the participants, yes. And I'm everything right now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I would like to request Professor Arun Kumar, if you can please provide us your views. Professor Arun Kumar is very well known to most of us here. I don't think actually he needs any introduction. He's retired as an economist from and a teacher from JNU, of course, and he was later associated with the Institute for Social Studies. We've all read his books when the demonetization hit and after also the corona pandemic. He's one of our foremost public intellectuals. So thank you for joining us, sir. And could you give us sort of the broader picture as to, because there are puzzling signs also coming from the US and from commentators about why these tariffs were put in. But also, I would just like you to focus on these tariffs have really exposed a major fragility, in our economic, in a sense, policy. That from the time that at least I have been following things, I've always heard, we should be producing for export, we should be trying to get into, global markets and be competitive there, etc. But when something like this happens, then the question arises, why was that never factored into our designs, right? And so if you could start with that, sir.
So Usman, I have a PPT. Can I share the PPT?
Yes, so you can share your screen and start the PPT.
Disabled now, so you need to enable me to share.
Right. Bhargav, I think you'll have to make sir the co-host so he's able to share the screen.
Is it possible to do that?
We are just figuring that out. Give us 20 seconds.
So, to start, while you do it, as an introduction, we need to understand the macro of the tariffs that have been levied. The first point is that Trump is behaving like a king. He's squeezing whoever he can. He's not even spared the US's closest allies, Canada and the EU. And the problem that India is facing is that there are two key demands that he's making, but India cannot accede to that. One is to open up the market of agriculture, and the other is the trade with Russia, which he wants reduced. And the various US strategic people, they are saying that if India wants to be a strategic partner, then India must behave like a strategic partner and do what Trump wants India to do. So on this pretext, we are now facing 50% tariff, and that will affect about 50% of India's exports, as has been already mentioned. So about $47 billion of India's exports are going to be affected. And as has already been said by other speakers, a large number of these tariffs are, from the labor-intensive areas, whether it be, from textiles, apparel, whether it be from shrimp and other such things. So in other words, employment will be also very badly hit. Now, what has happened is that India was expecting as a strategic partner that India will get concessions, and therefore, tariffs on India will be cheaper than on, say, China, on other country like Pakistan, etc. But instead, the tariff is higher than on China, 30%, and on Pakistan, Bangladesh, etc., 19%. So our prices for exports are going up much more than for those countries. So in a sense, our delusion has been shattered. And therefore, the Prime Minister is also saying that I'm going to protect the micro sector, the small and medium sector, the Indian agriculturists, etc. But question is, can we rely on that promise? Because already the cotton import duties have been eliminated. And therefore, US cotton is coming into India, and the price of cotton has fallen below the minimum support price. So the farmers are angry, and they suspect that ultimately their interests may be sacrificed also. So in other words, there's a trust deficit, and there's a problem about, the duties, whether we'll be able to get concessions and so on also from the US in terms of these things. But here in the case of cotton, the duties have been removed so that US cotton can come into the India. So what is clear is that what Trump is going in is very one-sided deals. Now, say like with
sorry to interrupt you, but I just heard from people who are managing the back end of this meeting that if you can send us the PPT over email, I think you've been in touch with Bhargav, then he can.
So let me proceed without the PPT then. Okay. That'll take time for me to get out and then do it. So instead, I'll just proceed. Okay. The trade deals that have been signed with Japan, EU, South Korea, UK, etc., are very one-sided. In the case of Japan and EU, it is said that goods coming into the US will have 15% duty, but US goods going to Japan, EU, and South Korea will have 0% duty. And then he's also got, promises of $600 billion investment from EU $500 billion from Japan, and then US promised to buy defense equipment and energy, etc. So all the deals are very, very one-sided. And this is the tragedy, that the richest and the technologically most advanced nation in the world is seeking to protect itself against much poorer countries from Africa, Asia, and so on. For instance, the US per capita income is $88,000, whereas Germany is at $55,000, Japan is at $33,000, and India is at $2,700. And yet, America is trying to gain concessions. So what has happened is that multilateralism has been buried by the USA. And this has created global disquiet, but there's helplessness because the US is, in terms of technology and in terms of trade and other things, it is a very powerful nation. And therefore, there's helplessness in the nations. But what should also be appreciated is that Trump's success has depended on the US's big trading partners not being able to come together. And he has bargained individually with each nation. And how has he done that? If you see that the tariffs that have been levied, which were announced on April 2, 2025, and it was called the Liberation Day for the USA. Now, what he called them is the reciprocal tariff. Now, reciprocity has a ring of justice in it. But my argument is that these are not reciprocal tariffs. So, for instance, India levied 17% tariff and US levied on India 3% average tariff. So 14% could be called reciprocal, but he's talking about 26%. And similarly with China, he's talking about, much higher tariffs. So these I call protectionist tariffs. These are not reciprocal tariffs. It is to protect the American economy from imports because of the large trade deficit that they have. But still, what he did was in April, he announced a 90-day pause. And then in July, again, he announced a pause of 30 days. So what he's been trying to do is to bargain individually with nations rather than collectively. So he said, in 90 days, I'll sign 90 deals. So this is protectionism at its worst. Why is this happening? And this is happening because the capitalism is facing a crisis. And therefore, the soft face of capitalism is being replaced by a hard face. Where, earlier there was give and take, like in the WTO and so on. So even though we were opposed to WTO, but nonetheless, there was some give and take in the WTO. And this hard face of capitalism has been appearing before the world since the decline of Soviet Union in the mid-70s. I remember in 1982, when the GATT round of negotiation was there, the American ambassador to GATT, he told the Indian ambassador to GATT that we will now get your agriculture markets open. And you'll know that in Uruguay round of negotiation in 1987, all the new issues were introduced. Trade in services, trade in agriculture, TRIMS, creation of WTO, etc. And you can also see that this hard face of capitalism has meant that where earlier there was aid given to the developing world, so-called aid, now it is replaced by capital flows. That means you have to give concessions for capital to come. So what has happened since the mid-70s is that capital has become highly mobile. There are 90 tax havens and capital can move from one to the other very rapidly. And that's why in 1982-83, when Mitterrand came to France as president, he had to concede within 3 days because a large amount of capital started flying out. Now, while capital has become highly mobile, labor is highly restricted. And therefore, labor's concessions are entirely being done away with. You see a very one-sided thing where capital is getting all the concessions, whereas labor is being restricted in various ways. So there is a rightward drift across the world. You see that in Europe, Asia, Latin America, etc. You see, for instance, the Labour Party in Britain is the new Labour, which is also right-wing. It is not pro-Labour. You see, for instance, in Germany, the AfD rising, in France, the Le Pen rising, in Brazil, now Lula has come. Before that, Bolsonaro was there. You see what's happening in Argentina, and you see in various Asian countries as well. So this rightward drift has meant that the marginalized in the world are going to suffer more. They suffered a lot during globalization, and they're going to suffer further. So what is clear is that from 1978, when Mrs. Thatcher came to power, Thatcherism and Reaganism has taken hold. And Mrs. Thatcher came to power saying there is no alternative. And the labor was suppressed, whether starting with the coal unions and the print unions and so on. So the gains of labor post-World War II have been lost since the late 1970s as this rightward drift has taken place. and capitalism is presenting a more and more a hard face rather than the soft face of capitalism when the Soviet Union was there and China was also a left-leaning government. So what has happened to the free market argument? Because the WTO, the GATT was on the basis of that free markets help, that there is a specialization, that specialization will help, and there'll be comparative advantage, etc. Trump is completely doing away with that. So Trump is a free marketeer in the USA, but he's against free market globally. So within the US, he's offering big concessions to big business, and he's saying, dig, baby, dig. He does not believe in climate change, which will impact the unorganized sector, which will impact the poor globally. So the Trump has a double face. He's a free marketeer within the US, helping businesses, but outside, he's there pressing down on all the people. So today, there is a reason why this is happening, and that is the challenge of employment generation in the USA. There is a trade war because capitalism is unable to generate enough jobs. So this challenge of creating jobs is what is besetting USA, and that's why the Trump tariffs are coming. So Trump has been blaming China, Mexico, and India for loss of jobs. He did that in the first term, and he's also doing it in the second term. And he's saying that good jobs are going away from the US. So like there is a rust belt in various parts of the country, like Detroit, where the automobile industry was there, like in Pittsburgh, where the steel industry, etc., was there. So what he wants is that these kind of jobs should come back. And that's why within the first term also, he's pressing the American companies to bring capital back. So he's pressing Ford and others to bring capital back to the USA. So the question arises, why were these MNCs investing abroad? And there, what happened was that in the WTO, the advanced nations miscalculated. And therefore, the regime that was set up under WTO, that has globalized the world very rapidly. So production is now globally integrated. The share of exports and imports in GDP has risen sharply in every country. So for instance, in India, the ratio of export to GDP was around 7% in 1991. It became 22% in 2023. So therefore, in India, the export and import share of GDP has risen, and it has risen globally. In 1990-91, even the US share of export to GDP was around 6%. Japan also had around 6%. China had 9%. These all jumped very rapidly to 20, 22, 23% all over. So what the MNCs are doing is they're maximizing profit via producing in low-wage developing world. So in the US, the minimum wage is now $7.25. But in most of the states of the USA, it is $15 to $16 per hour. Whereas in the auto sector and other sectors, $25 to $30 per hour. So in other words, in the US, in one day, a worker will earn what a worker in India will earn in 2 months, or what a Chinese worker will earn in 1 month. So the wage costs are much lower. So as a result of this, the MNCs have shifted a part of their production to these countries where the wages are low. So in the WTO, what happened was there was a division between the high technology, intermediate technology, and low technology. The low wages in developing world became a source of cheap supplies. So competition among the developing countries has kept prices low because the same intermediate or low technology item is produced in India, China, Vietnam, Bangladesh, and so on and so forth. So advanced countries were producing the high technology goods and services, and they were benefiting in totality as a result of this division of labor. But what's happened is that services production in the advanced countries is very high. Like in America, it's about 75 to 80% of the economy's services sector. And they wanted to export to the developing world. They wanted to sell their services in the developing world. And under WTO, they got concession in trims, trade in services, and various other things, while we got concession in terms of trade in the goods sector. So unfortunately, now the US cannot produce intermediate technology goods cheap because of the high minimum wages, because their wages are 20, 30 times the wages in the Indian market or so in the other. So the catch is that the production of advanced technology goods and services is highly automated, and it offers little employment. And that is why the workers have to go for very cheap services sector jobs, and they are dissatisfied. And that's why the blue-collar workers in the Rust Belt have been very unhappy. And Trump promising them that the jobs will be brought back, they voted for him, even though he's pro-business, he's not pro-labor. So the terms of trade shifted in favor of advanced countries as a result of the WTO thing. And therefore, Americans have been living beyond their means because our workers working at very low wages have been supplying the basic items of living very cheap to the American market. So now that the trade war is getting aggravated, the problems will arise for the US and for the world if other nations also retaliate. So everybody is likely to go protectionist because the surpluses that will be created in each of the nation, they will try and sell in some other nation. So China has surplus, EU has surplus, India has surplus because our exports to the US will go down. And therefore, we'll try and sell to each other, in which case, what will happen is there'll be dumping. And then the other nations will also levy tariffs. So the question is, what are the consequences for the US economy? What are the consequences for the Indian economy of this? So this high tariff on imports will lead to price rise in the USA. Whether the US produces within the US at high wages, the cost will be higher. Whether the tariffs are there and therefore the imported goods are more expensive. So in other words, the problem will be that prices in the US will rise. Also, internal production cannot be ramped up very quickly, and therefore supply bottlenecks will appear. And therefore, you will have to have high tariffs permanently in the USA, intermediate technology goods, or the workers' wages will have to be squeezed. Either way, the workers' living condition in the US will go down. So therefore, in a sense, what will happen is the demand in the US will fall, and therefore the output rate of growth will decline in the USA. This is stagflationary because output will stagnate or decline, prices will go
Arun
up.
Kumar is speaking.
So in other words, the US will suffer from stagflation or even recession if the situation becomes even worse. Now the question is, what is India's position? India's position is that we are very weak in R&D, and therefore what we find is that it is affecting our development. We are getting squeezed between Russia, China, and the USA. So the point is that Trump, what will he do? India's surplus in trade with the US, that will decline because about $50 billion of our exports will be affected. We have a surplus trade with the US, but we have deficit with almost other countries. So our trade deficit will expand, and therefore our rupee will decline. And when the rupee declines, the inflation will kick up. And industry's margin, as Mr. Raghunathan, etc., was saying, the industry's margin are not so high that they'll be able to lower the price and sell in the US market. So the industry in India will try and squeeze wages. It'll try and get some concessions from the government, but it'll also squeeze wages. Now, agriculture cannot afford to open the market because our agriculturists are unequal to the US agriculturists. In the US, there's a 26 lakh rupees subsidy per farmer. In India, the average farmer will be earning only a lakh and a half. So therefore, there's no competition. In India, there are a large number of farms which are half acre, 1 acre, 2 acre, whereas in America, the minimum farm size is 250 acres. The minimum capital is 10 crores, whereas most of our farmers work with hardly 50,000.
Your video is frozen. Is that Bhargav, is that the case, or is it just happening to my machine?
It's happening to me as well.
Okay. I think we'll just try to get Mr. Kumar back online.
I just got a call from Arun Kumar ji. His power is gone. He said he'll join in 2 minutes.
Okay. In the meantime, Bhargav, would it be possible for you to quickly kind of give us a summary of what Geeta ji was saying? I think she has sent a separate message.
Sure.
And also some points that Raghu sir was making. Yes.
So I think I'll just mention briefly what Geeta ji said, and she also sent a voice note to me. So I'll just briefly speak about what Geeta ji said. She said that 30,000 workers have gone jobless only in Tamil Nadu. The tariffs have affected at a very crucial time when Diwali is coming, and a lot of workers, all these workers are going to lose their bonus, which is a hard-earned social security right. So it's come at a very crucial time when they were looking at buying gifts, buying clothes for themselves or their families. And it is in this time that the tariffs have come. Uh, Many workers are now going to be unable to pay for their house rent, for their for the EMIs, for their products that they are buying, for their phones. Uh, and many of the first generation children of these workers are also not going to able to study further. She also said that migrants usually depend on overtime shifts all the way out of the state to make money for their family. But with single shift, they are going to be unable to stay at work. Uh, and In the districts of Dindigul, Tirupur, Kovai, Erode, and Karur, almost 30,000 workers have lost their jobs. Inter-district migrants are in huge numbers, and about 1,700 workers have been affected. Inter-district migrant workers in Tamil Nadu. There are young workers who are supporting their siblings to appear for colleges now, and this tariff has also affected their fee payment. Christmas and New Year is the major order, is the time when a lot of orders come in. The Trump has affected, and the Trump tariffs have affected the life of poor workers who even don't know to understand what is tariff. So workers are not able to like comprehend the consequences of this kind of tariff imposition, especially the floor level workers. Uh, and there are protests going on by trade unions in Tamil Nadu. The trade war of Trump on India cannot be justified, and the egos of political scenario has made workers' plate empty. None of the big brands, the Western brands, the textile brands, or the fast fashion brands has taken the responsibility for this kind of crisis. It did not take any responsibility during COVID. It's not taking any responsibility right now. There is a running away attitude from the brand's side whenever crisis like this hit unorganized workers lowest in the supply chains. And Currently there are some studies being done by Asia Floor Wage, and the outcomes will be shared soon by Geeta ji. So this Professor Arun Kumar is here, so we'll continue with him, and later we'll take up
Yes.
the other.
I'm more or less finishing.
Yes.
So I'll not take much time because I think I've taken. So, our agricultures cannot withstand the competition that will come from American farmers. So we are not going to be able to open up our markets. If we do that, then poverty will increase whichever way we see it. So what is happening is that India is being coerced to negotiate and give concessions to the USA, even though the US economy is far, far bigger than the Indian economy. Per capita income there is 30 times more than in India, and so on. But in the budget itself, we started cutting our duties, signaling to Trump that we are willing to give concessions. We've also increased our oil import from the USA. We are also promising to buy more aircraft from the US and more defense equipment from the US. Now, if global recession comes, then India will be hit very hard. Unemployment will be going up, and the marginalized sections, especially the micro and the small sector, they'll be hit very hard. So India has had difficulty in trade negotiations. Wherever we have had free trade agreements or bilateral trade agreements earlier, like with South Korea, like with Southeast Asia, with Australia, we have lost out. They have gained more in export. We have not been able to export so much because of the technology problem that we face, that other nations have better technology and they're able to send in more export into India. So export market is not the way to go for India. But this is the thing that we've done after 1991 with the new economic policies. We are wanting more and more of export, and we are not boosting the internal market. The internal market, which is constituted by the 46% working in agriculture, the 48% working in the unorganized sector of non-agriculture. So 94% of the workers are in the unorganized sector. We have not catered to them. And the policies have been marginalizing policies. And that's why, the problem has grown. So today, now, deglobalization has been set in motion. And what is happening is that anti-worker policy will increase. The de-dollarization of the world economy started with the Ukraine war, and that will accelerate. The BRICS nations already have been talking about it. President Trump is worried because if de-dollarization takes place, then the US economy will suffer a lot, because at the moment, because of dollarization of the world economy, they can have a huge trade deficit, they can have a huge budget deficit, which no other nation can do. The trillions of dollars lying abroad are interest-free loan to the American economy. So the USA is able to live beyond its means. That will go down with de-dollarization and de-globalization. But what it will mean for the workers and the marginalized section is that within their local economies, they'll be pressed more. So as Geetaji was saying, bonuses will be cut and various other ways in which the manufacturers and the producers, they will try to cut their margins so as to try and regain markets abroad. But what is likely to happen is that because of the dumping fear from various other big economies, tariffs will go up everywhere. And therefore, the world economy may go into recession. So globalization affected the position of workers, and deglobalization will also affect the position of workers even further, not only because of employment, but also because the margins will be cut by squeezing workers' wages. And as has already been flagged, the coming of the artificial intelligence may lead to much worse situation in employment generation, because large number of jobs, even the jobs of skilled workers, are likely to be displaced. So we have call centers, BPOs that are going to go, but even doctors' job, lawyers' job, architects' jobs, they are going to be affected very badly. So to conclude, Trump is saying that make America great again. But the path he has chosen is one in which there'll be stagflation and recession in the US economy. Therefore, he'll not be able to do it. But what he has done is that he's actually created difficulties for all other countries, including India. And he's created difficulty for the Indian workers, especially from the unorganized sector. So the crisis of capitalism is likely to deepen further. And therefore, what we have is a situation in which Indian economy has to change its track, what it followed after 1991. We have to change track, and we have to focus on employment generation and not simply on the organized sector, which generates very few jobs. There are only 6% workers working in the organized sector, 94% are in the unorganized sector. So we have to raise our internal issues and strengthen society, which means we have to strengthen agriculture, micro sector, and employment generation. Unfortunately, if you look at the last budget, it is precisely in these sectors that the cuts were there. Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme was cut. Education and health in real terms were cut. Investment in the agriculture sector and in the rural sector, those were cut. These are the employment generating sectors. And where were the expenditures raised? In the capital intensive sectors like freight corridor, big highways, a power sector, IT sector, and so on. There you don't have much employment generation. Earlier in a road building project, you'd see hundreds of workers. Now with big cranes and bulldozers and JCBs, you see only 10 people working. So even the construction sectors become very capital intensive. In agriculture also, you see use of more and more machines. For instance, harvester combines, tractors, threshers, and so on. So in agriculture also, employment generation is being very weak. And therefore, people are moving out of agriculture into non-agriculture. Though, of course, after the pandemic, a lot of people went back from cities to the villages into agriculture. But the trend will be that people will not have work in agriculture. They'll try and move out. But the micro sector has been impacted by demonetization, by the GST, structurally faulty GST, by the NBFC crisis, and by the pandemic. So the micro sector is not dynamic, and the government is only killing the micro sector by saying we'll organize it. But micro sector average employment is 1.7 per unit. How can they become organized? Similarly, in agriculture, there are half-acre, 1 acre, 2 acre farms. They cannot become organized. You can only convert them into workers by destroying them, but they will not become organized. So government's policy has to change. So government now is talking about Atmanirbharta. But how can we become Atmanirbhar when we are heavily dependent on technology? We have $100 billion trade deficit with China. And we import high technology items and also low technology items from China. So what we need to talk about is creating a strong internal market by pumping in incomes into the hand of agriculturists, micro sector people, and the small sector people. Then our internal market will expand. When the internal market expands, our organized sector will also expand, because organized sector balance sheets are very good. They've done away with their loans, and therefore they can invest more. But why are they not investing more? Because demand is very weak in the Indian economy. And the demand comes from the 94% from the workers. So we need to boost the income of workers. We need to talk about, like in our report on employment, unemployment, which we brought out in 2022, we said that there should be a living wage. Our constitution promises a living wage to workers. So living wage must be given so that there's enough demand for education, health, various other sectors. That's the only way to tackle the crisis. We cannot depend on Trump, even if he reduces that 25% extra tariff in the coming months. Even then, I think the lesson is very clear. We have to depend on our own strength. We have to boost our education, health. We have to boost our R&D. And that's the only way possible. Thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Professor Kumar, also not just for explaining the tariffs, but also for situating them in the sort of broad historical sweep of a moment of capitalism and its crisis that we are in. And thank you also for highlighting, sketching out the things that we need to think about in terms of going ahead, which is what we will want to focus on in the coming kind of discussion as well. And I'm sure I've asked our audience to please drop in your questions in the chat box. We'll try and squeeze in a little bit of time for question answers towards the end. But just now, I would like to welcome Comrade Wahida Nizam, who is the National Secretary of the All India Trade Unions Congress, the AITUC, which is our largest left-wing trade union. As such, she has represented workers' interests across different forums and has a sort of a bird's eye view of the impact of these tariffs also on workers in different regions in the country, not just in different sectors. So, Comrade Wahida, can I ask you to please give us your sense of the impact that these tariffs have had on workers? And the second question to you would be, what is the union's kind of plan, in a sense, of responding to this crisis? Comrade.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Usman. Can you all hear me?
Yes, you're clearly audible. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. And at the outset, I would want to thank the NAPM for having organized this webinar. And in the same breath, I want to profusely thank Dr. Arun Kumar, who has just now painted an elaborate picture, a wide canvas of what is happening with this tariff hike. So I wouldn't want to go deep into all those things, but confine myself with the labor thing. But before going into the impact on the labor and employment, I would, because all of us, all the participants here are definitely people who are seeing the whole thing through a prism of political perspective, definitely. So we cannot miss the political shenanigans that have led to the 50% tariff. This has just not happened overnight. The 50% tariff has hit a huge body blow on the Indian economy, and the economic impact and on the livelihood of millions of workers. We cannot just say a few thousand workers. Only the gems and jewellery industry of Surat, the latest report that has come, says that 1.35 lakh workers in Surat alone have lost their jobs. And I would join Comrade Geeta, who said 30,000 workers in Tirupur and in adjacent districts in Tamil Nadu have lost their jobs. I would add there are tens of thousands of home-based workers who are invisible workers, who are affected in the labor-intensive sectors, which are affected by this Trump's tariff. this is like the impact is on the GDP. If we are going to talk in terms of the GDP in 2025, 2% of India's GDP was US exports. Today, our policymakers are saying we are not going to have a big impact because our GDP is very strong. It is 7.8%. And what if, US tariff and trade because of that is affected? All this, irresponsible talks by our government. And as Dr. Arun Kumar was saying, this is rude capitalism. I would call this harsh capitalism, and capitalism to its peak, which is assuming the shape of imperialist onslaught. MAGA is making America great again, is an imperialist rhetoric from America. We can say like Trump is trying to assume sky-high powers. Yes, he is trying to assume sky-high powers, despite the fact that American courts themselves have said that the exceptional powers given by the American Constitution to the President of US, Trump is surpassing all those things in imposing tariff. There are some American courts that have come out with that, but Trump doesn't care about it. This is how America has been. America has been like this since the 18th, 19th century itself. Tariff is one tool, imposition of tariff on the trading countries, trading partners, has been a weapon used by America particularly right through these, since these days of capitalism's intensification. And when capitalism is in crisis, it tries to come out of it. When it tries to come out of it, this is a cyclical crisis of capitalism. When it tries to come out of it, it imposes the burden again on the labor. That is what happens when globalization, after the onset of globalization, workers, it had an impact. Liberalization of market had an impact on the workers, and a huge section of unorganized workforce has come to stay. Like Dr. Arun Kumar was saying, 96% of India's workforce is in the unorganized sector, and this includes millions of invisible workers who are concentrated in the export intensive sectors that are now under attack, like textile and garments, gems and jewelry, food industry, leather industry, and all these industries. So this said, this did not just happen on 27th August. When Trump, as soon as Trump assumed office for the second time, he had spoken about reciprocal tariffs to be imposed on India. After Mr. Trump had spoken this, our Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, had gone to America. All of us expected, the country expected, that Narendra Modi would talk to Mr. Trump, because Narendra Modi always said there was a chemistry between him and Donald Trump. He had always said America is a natural ally of India, which cannot in any term be a natural ally. But the Prime Minister of India kept saying that. Instead of talking about the reciprocal tariff that Mr. Trump was talking about, Mr. Narendra Modi went and discussed about Mission 500. Mission 500 to carry the trade to 500 billion US dollars by 2030. That was what Mr. Narendra Modi spoke. And he had also signed 5 big defense deals with US and oil import from the US. But he never spoke about. He also, met Elon Musk, his family, his children. He took gifts for Elon Musk's children and all those things. He had fun there, but he never spoke about the reciprocal tariff. And this has been, Mr. Arun Kumar was talking about BRICS and de-dollarization. India should have played a very, very significant role in BRICS. But India failed to play that role in BRICS. When the BRICS nations spoke about de-dollarization, our Minister, Mr. Jaishankar, when he attended the BRICS meeting, said India is not thinking in terms of de-dollarization because India does not see any reason as to why we should go for de-dollarization. This was towing the line. This was spoken in favor of USA, which did not want de-dollarization, because if that came, then the dollar loses its sheen in the world market. And also about the bank that should be brought in by BRICS, the free trade agreements among the BRICS countries, all these things were not taken up with all seriousness, with the significance that they should have got by India. India failed in doing, desperately failed, and it did not just like that fail. It wanted to favor America. Instead of BRICS, India was getting into Quad. Quad, a combination of America, Australia, Japan. In fact, Australia came out of the Quad grouping when China raised a dispute. But India still sticks to the Quad. Quad is something that is intended to put a check on China, which is emerging as a super trade power, which is seen by United States of America as a trade enemy. But India should have its natural trade relations within this region with its the countries like China, Brazil, South Africa. Instead, it is finding itself in Quad with a particular interest that Modi sees to be close to United States of America. This we cannot miss the ideological affinity that this government is trying to find with America, Israel, and these countries. This is a very very sharp shift from the foreign policy of India, which is now finding its expression. And the US want
ask
India.
you to conclude in a couple of minutes, and also just to say,
sure.
if you can, a little bit about
I will. Yes.
How
tariff MSMEs, just like Mr. Raghunathan said so much about it. This government, in the floor of the parliament, has given a reply, stating how many lakhs of MSMEs were closed with the impact of demonetization and GST. demonetization, GST, Corona lockdown, all these things have had a tremendous impact on MSMEs. And the MSMEs impact means impact on the employment. And the employment that we are talking about is missing out the employment of the invisible workforce, who are the home-based workers, which is running into several tens of thousands of workers. In Tirupur alone, there are about 130,000 home-based workers, all women, sitting at home and doing their work, and they play a very vital role in the entire supply chain of the garment industry. So they are not even enumerated. So when they are not even, the government does not even have an idea as to how many home-based workers are there in this country, and they do not have any idea as to how they are impacted. Their livelihood is this, but they remain, invisible. So they are not enumerated. So the labor industry is very deeply hit, and the impact is already seen. In Tirupur, 8,000 crore consignment is just lying. The exporters are holding it because the importer in the US, they don't want to take it. They don't want to take it. 8,000 crores. And like Gita said, all this has had an impact on the workers. They are not getting their wages. They don't have their work. They don't have work. We can see in Tirupur, the home-based workers who are eking out their livelihood are today not having their livelihood. So what is the government going to do? The government is coming out with some package, which is not at all a relief package. And that relief package is also only at a macroeconomic level. This government has not seen as to how many workers are impacted. And when the workers are impacted, the cascading effect falls on the local economy. The local economy in Tirupur, we can see how many tea shops are closed. How many tea shops are closed? So to that extent, the economy is affected. All this thing has to be enumerated to see the impact. And the government has to come out with a reasonable package. I would like to add to whatever Mr. Raghunathan was saying, that our demand should be that import duty and all the raw materials should be lifted now, till the time that some permanent solution is brought in. Number one. Number two, the state government and the central government together should bear the expenditure of electricity. That these are all small things that the electricity, transportation cost. These things should be should give a leverage to the MSMEs to some extent. And enumeration of the entire workforce that is going to be affected, and how the government should come out with a reskilling package to the workers. They should be reskilled. They should be provided with alternate employment. All these things have to be done with taking into confidence all the stakeholders, the employer, the exporters, employers, and the trade unionists together, because only the trade unionists know how many workers are there, how many workers are impacted. So I would want to trigger one point here, that India's trade with USSR, since the time USSR was there, has always been historic. There was a rupee-ruble relationship with USSR. That historic trade has been there, but the import of crude oil today from USSR is only going to fill the booties of Reliance Industries and the Gujarat, Wadinar industry of Rosneft. So these two people, these two industries have amassed 13,000 crores of profit through the discount that is coming. So to just say the common man is not, benefited with that. So to remain rigid and pose a big picture that no, we are not buckling down to the pressures of USA. We do not want India to buckle down to USA's pressure. But at the same time, we also should make it very clear that the benefit that is coming through the discounted rate of Russian crude oil goes to fill the booties of the Reliance, Ambani, and the Adanis. That is the reason why this government is not doing anything to upset the apple cart. There should be negotiation and inward-looking policies, inward-looking strategies to develop the local market, domestic market, which we have lost sight of since the advent of globalization. Now, the policies of Indian government should be inward-looking policies to generate demand, like Amartya Sen and Esther Duflo and Abhijit Banerjee had been saying, put money in the hands of the people. Put money in the hands of the people, which means increase the wages, provide employment, give money, see that it is spent in the market, generate demand, and then the demand supply chain, the simple economy, that should be implemented with inward-looking policies in order to see that India comes out of this crisis and Indian market, Indian employment is strengthened. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your intervention. We also have some questions coming in, so I'm going to very quickly move on to Comrade Clifton De Rosario. Thank you for your patience, first of all, Comrade, for listening to everyone. Comrade Clifton, as several of us would know, is a lawyer. He's based in Karnataka. He's a member of the CPIML Liberation, also the AICCTU trade union, and he also leads the ILAJ, the All India Lawyers Association for Justice. So, Comrade, how is it that you are seeing the impact of this move play out? And as much as then some of it has been said also by other speakers, but what I also wanted to ask you was to reflect on how is it that we as trade unionists and those on the left counter this, and what is the importance of a class solidarity across sectors, because this is hitting specific sectors, but it is posing a crisis actually, as Professor Kumar and also Comrade Vaida had said, about the local economy and on all of us. So how is it that you see a response to this coming from the left?
Thank you. Sorry, I just missed the time was something I didn't understand. I didn't think it'll take so long. We have another meeting in another 20 minutes. I'm not going to repeat anything that has been said because there's really no point in that. And so far as these tariffs are concerned, and there's no speculation now. I think reports have already started to come in so far as the job losses that are happening, job losses that are being counted, and the ones that are not being counted. And I think it's just going to worsen in the coming days unless there is something that is done. And right now there's a complete paralysis. I wouldn't say there's a paralysis actually. Unfortunately, we have a government in power which basically is sacrificing the sovereignty of this nation. And I think that's really something that we need to be extremely concerned about. Just 2 points that I wanted to make insofar as this entire decision is made. Firstly, it's very, very ironic that the Ambani Group, which has reaped massive profits from the discounted oil purchase from Russia. This was the pretext in which these punitive tariffs have been imposed. They are completely unhurt by this. The products which dominate the Reliance exports, they have been exempted from the Trump tariffs. So I think there couldn't be a bigger irony than this. Secondly, contrary to there being any kind of a gutsy kind of a response, what you have is a capitulation. And the government has actually abolished the 11% tariff on cotton imports. And I think Dr. Arun had actually spoken about it. And this is, these two aspects, I think, in a way, kind of, point to where we are. Basically, it is a very US-centric foreign policy of the Modi government that has landed in this present crisis. I'm not going to say more on that. I just wanted to make those preliminary observations. The second thing I wanted to make was that we really need to also see this entire thing in the context of where we are. It's this is a time when the working class is already facing, basically there's a fascist assault on the working class, and that is something that we've seen over the past decade or more. And the consequences of it is that you have an extremely precarious working class today. You already had a working class that was more or less disorganized. In fact, Professor Upendra Bakshi insists on using the phrase disorganized as opposed to the word unorganized. The disorganized is the manner in which the ruling class ensures that the workers that the worker force is a pliable workforce that it can deal with. So you already had this kind of a situation. What's happened over the past decade is that the workers in the working class, when under the brunt of this fascist assault, has really weakened quite considerably. I'm not going to say too much about that. I think for me, one of the things that exemplifies the way this particular regime looks at workers is this very famous thing that Modi said some time ago. He said that there are only two castes in India. There is the one caste which is the poor, and the other caste is that which wants to get them out of their poverty. So basically, this my baap kind of ji huzur kind of a mindset. There is no space for working class dignity in Hindutva. In Hindutva, it is you just be glad for whatever job you got and be grateful to your employer. And whatever the employer gives you is something that you just take without asking for too much. There's no rights. There's just that kind of, this kind of relationship that they envisage. Now, in this, one of the things that I wanted to really say is that we are it's quite scary what's going to happen now. There has been some talk of a package. And, I'll just go back to COVID. COVID happened, and the kind of contempt that Modi had for the working class was exemplified by this 4-hour kind of window. So in 4 hours, you were told, wrap up and sit at home. In 4 hours was just nothing for the working class to be able to make arrangements for their rations, to go back home, none of that. Now you also at that time you had packages. I think some 20,000 crore package, 5,000 crore package, this thousands of crore kind of package that was spoken about. What did the workers face? The workers faced theft, wage theft. This was declared on the 24th of March, which meant that they didn't get their wages for their month. That was wage theft that was legally sanctioned by the Modi government. The second thing that you had were instructions. In the middle of COVID, there were instructions that were given out to the various governments. In fact, I'll just read out, this was a communication which the Union Labour Ministry sent out to all the state governments. And it said that in order to address the challenges emerging due to the COVID pandemic, it is requested to undertake labour reforms on a priority basis. And what were these labour reforms? They said increase the threshold from 100 to 300 workers under the ID Act. Increase the threshold under the Contract Labour Act from existing 20 workers to 80 workers. Increase the threshold in the Factories Act from 10 to 20. Bring in fixed term employment. Increase the working hours from 8 to 12. And many governments did this, including the Gujarat government. And that was challenged before the Apex Court. And the Apex Court set it aside, saying that the brunt of the COVID is not being felt only by the industries. A major part of it is actually felt by the working class who cannot suffer this. So it set aside all of those changes that the Gujarat government made. Now that's what happened in COVID. Now what is happening at the time of these tariffs? I don't know if you've observed, but in Gujarat a very interesting thing has happened. Gujarat, which has already seen the loss of jobs, especially in the gem industry. On Wednesday, the Gujarat Assembly has passed the Factories Gujarat Amendment Bill, which increases the permissible daily work limit from 9 hours to 12 hours. They've already done this. And I think, this is something that we need to be extremely cautious about, that what, Naomi Klein calls the shock doctrine, that when the people are suffering from a particular shock, what you do is you bring in the most regressive labor reforms, the most regressive policies, because people are not going to respond to it. They're not going to be able to respond to it. So today, with this threat of the job loss, already when joblessness is so high, unemployment is so high, when job loss is looming, wages are already depreciated. You already have no job security. What could perhaps happen at this point, which the Gujarat government has kind of shown the way, is that you will have the labor codes being brought into force in one form or the other. either in the way it stands today as it was passed by Parliament or by various state governments bringing in their own amendments today. I think that is one of the things that, if you ask me, and one of the things that you were saying, what is it that we have to do today? I think, of course, MSME protections, yes, these are things that you need to talk about. But worker protection, this has to be something that we really focus on. There's a constant supply of low-cost labor, including migrant workers, and yet again a call will be made to the working class to sacrifice in this war against, the Trump tariff, which really not it is. That's not what it is. I think protecting the workers at this point has to be the fundamental duty of all of us. The second thing I feel, that we really need to push for, and this is something that probably Prasad has also asked for in this, in one of the questions, we have to push for closer bilateral and regional ties of economic cooperation with countries of the global south. There has to be a serious quest for de-dollarization so as to end this hegemony of the US dollar. These are some of the things that we need to do. But as a trade unionist, and somebody who's extremely concerned about where this goes from here, I would think defending the rights, the labor rights that exist today. The labor codes have been passed in Parliament, but thanks to the strength of the workers, it has still not been brought into force. This should not be used as an opportunity to ram through such kind of anti-worker, anti-nation kind of laws. And I think that's a very big responsibility that rests on all of us. Yeah, I'll end here. I hope I didn't take too much of time. Thank you, Ismail.
Yes, no, thank you. Thank you, comrade. Thank you, comrade, for your succinct but very observation. Thank you for sharing those with us. I'll ask Comrade Franco to present his views to us just now. All of us know Comrade very well. He was the General Secretary of the All India Bank Workers Confederation, and he's also leading a collective in Tamil Nadu, which is now called People First. And of course, he's part of the NAPM's advisory committee, and so wears many hats. So, Comrade Franco, over to you. Your assessment of this, and also if you can focus on the kind of role that public finance can play in responding to this crisis and, in a sense, building back better. Like our speakers have spoken a little bit about that, about self-reliance and about building connections with other countries in the global south. How can public finance kind of aid that process?
Usman, please tell me how many minutes?
I would say 12 minutes, sir.
Okay. Good evening, comrades. I had been listening to all these speakers. Very, very, very good inputs have been there. Only thing I was feeling as part of NAPM that the attendance has been poor. We have to see, at least in the successive seminars, how do we bring in more people. And I wear this keffiyeh in all my public meetings and public discourses, including interviews to the TV channels and other YouTube channels, just to show my solidarity. And today, report says that 680,000 Palestinians have been killed already, and out of that, 380,000 has been children. Now, coming to the topic, I will not touch on anything which other speakers have touched. Only thing I would like to say is that when we switched over from General Agreement on Tariff and Trade to World Trade Organization, we were told that now your problem of negotiating with individual countries ends. We have the WTO to handle everything. But what has happened in the last 1 or 2 years is that slowly WTO has been dismantled and we have to go in for regional cooperation, bilateral agreements. So we are back to square one. Secondly, that time it was told that movement of labor will also take place over a period of time. But there is so much of restriction on the labor movement even today. Free movement of labor from countries to countries. On this Trump tariff, it is very unfortunate that in spite of having 7 months time, it was not announced overnight. 7 months ago, we were told that there is going to be this tariff. We did not radically do the negotiation, and we did not take any step for handling the situation. And that we have entered in such a situation that so many people are jobless and import is in question. A few days back, there was a report that the fish exported from Tamil Nadu, mid-sea, it has been returned. The whole ship is coming back. What will these people do with that? And it's a big $1 million question. So government did not prepare, and being from banking industry, I'm pained to see that RBI also did not prepare itself. It's not dealing with COVID situation or even demonetization where it was unannounced. But here you had time. You could have prepared. You could have brought guidelines. After the COVID, they formed a Kamath committee, and then that committee gave some recommendations on how moratorium can be given, who can be given, all that. But now the regime has already changed. It's more going to be of a month. Even now, RBI has not taken any effect. It's so unfortunate that yesterday and day before yesterday, the government of India organized something called PSP Mandhan. Public sector bank chairmen, MDs were called. They were interacting with the RBI officials, with the DFS secretary. And there Microsoft was asked to give them solutions. Google was there to give solutions for what is to be done for Indian banking. And what they have talked about more is to how to make some of the banks as globally competitive. What was needed, there was a discussion on how are you going to deal with this tariff, and so many exporters who are having accounts with you are affected. What solution you are going to give? That was not discussed at all. This is so unfortunate. What can be done at the banking level? Already K. Raghunathan explained clearly what the industry demands. He is not just an industrialist. He gave up the industry after solar. He was a pioneer in solar. And after Adani came in, he stopped his business and he's only helping others to survive. But the demands what he made is very clear. What you need is immediately giving a moratorium on loans for all those people who are involved in the exports, including the micro enterprises, even if they are at default. Now, even during COVID, one mistake what was done was that those who had already some default, they were not given any relief. They were allowed to die. They were allowed to close down. That should not happen. Even if they are not repaying, an opportunity to be given that, okay, 6 months or 1 year, you have a period, you don't have to repay your loan. It will be extended. Ultimately, they are going to pay back that amount along with interest only. It is not free. Moratorium is only deferring the repayment. Similarly, interest subvention. This government has to do. Kerala government is providing 4% interest to all which have taken loan from the bank. First paid by the state government to the bank. That way the women get cheaper credit. The same way, the government of India should now come and say that, okay, for 6 months or 1 year, till this problem is solved, we will give an interest subvention. So continue to give your credit. That is secondly. Thirdly, there are certain things which I am suggesting out of the box. Prasad Chako, please put your mobile on mute.
Carry on.
See, some out of the regular thing, what would like to suggest is we have hundreds of foreign branches of our own banks led by State Bank of India. Those branches can negotiate in their respective country, leave US, the other countries, get into negotiation with their own customers. The interest is there. Say, this is an opportunity. You get import from India. We will give you credit support. That can be done. Similarly, the foreign banks who are having branches in India, they can be asked to play this role, support this. That will help in a longer run. It will increase your business. It is not you are doing a free service, but you are doing something extra. This is one thing which could be possible. Secondly, unless you create more demand in the country, other speakers have also spoken about it, create more employment. I'll quote your statistics. The employment in the public sector and public services, including the government, state and central government together, if we see across the world, even in capitalist countries, 20 to 30% of the people are employed in government and public sector. In some of the countries like Russia, it is 52%. China, it is 39%. Whereas in our country, it is even now only 3.2%. So the government, public sector banks, other public services, post offices, everything has a big scope for increasing employment. You increase the employment, you are increasing the purchasing power of the people. So they start buying these goods within the country. You don't have to depend on the export market. India has a huge population. So if you increase the purchasing power of the people, others will want to come in instead of we asking them to come in. That's one session. Then the trade unions, what they should do. Trade unions, number one, in the public sector. The bank unions, especially the Bank Officers Confederation, of which I was General Secretary, not workers. I was General Secretary of the All India Bank Officers Confederation. They have already started a plan for support services and outreach to socially affected people. So what they can do is, number one, they can help these people who are affected, with the employers themselves, how to cope with this, what are the ways in which you can adjust your account, that is one. Secondly, those workers who are not able to continue in the job, what kind of support is needed, that they can give skill development trainings, that kind of support services are possible. Secondly, they should also demand to the Reserve Bank of India that immediately you come up with your plan. Unless RBI gives permission, no banks can give moratorium. The accounts will become non-performing assets, and once you are declared as NPA, you are killed. So the unions also should demand that RBI should come up with some idea, and the trade unions should also, the whole trade unions, they should interact with these people who are affected and see how they can be helped. One new suggestion again I am giving is, the government should be asked to bear the cost of the workers' salary or wages for some months. An example is the seafarers, the fishing community, which is dependent on the sea for their livelihood. For part of the period of when there is a ban on fishing, that time the government is providing a minimum wage to them so that they can survive. A similar thing can be done in this case also. And I would like that as people, we should start thinking as a whole. Some of the comrades have already spoken about the policy, what is happening, that awareness people should be having. Today, non-tariff measures, many things are happening. That is not being talked about. Physio-sanitary conditions, they are putting stringent conditions so that your agriculture products cannot be exported. Labor movement has been restricted. Visas are restricted. Student visas are restricted. Trade visas are restricted. All this is also affecting. Whereas for Tesla, this government went so happily to and gave an opportunity for them to open their first showroom in Mumbai. And ministers in Maharashtra government are going and buying Tesla cars. And they, in spite of saying you buy in India, make in India, all that is only on talk. So again, this tariff negotiation will also have impact on the Adani's case in US. So they are willing to surrender to US, and that is going to further affect our people. So let us start questioning the government. Let us start questioning the policies and also boycott these products from US. That is one call probably trade union should give. Like the Kisan movement, they gave a call for boycotting Adani Ambani. So let us stand together and work together for change. Thank you, comrades.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Comrade Franco. And thank you to everyone else also. We've got some questions that have come in. And I would request us to stay for another 5 to 7 minutes so that we can hear our speakers respond to them. I was wondering if Professor Kumar, if you're still with us, if you would like to reflect on this question that has been asked about alternative trade relations that India could get into, because you spoke about this being also a moment of deglobalization.
Usman, I have another meeting, so I should leave in another 5 minutes.
Okay, comrade. Thank you so much. Thank you. So, Professor Kumar, if you could take that.
Dear Comrade Usman, I have another meeting, so I should leave in another 5 minutes.
Okay, comrade. So, thank you for letting us know.
So, there are two things. First, of course, is that we have to expand the internal market. If we don't expand the internal market and depend only on exports, I think it's a losing proposition, because I suspect that tariffs will go up everywhere because there's likelihood of dumping. So this is a generalized trade war, not just trade war with the US, but a generalized trade war is likely to come. Second is that, given the AI's advance, a lot of unemployment is going to get created. So the trade block that we have, whether we BRICS or other nations, that may not help in that. So I think the internal market is what the key that we have to say. But if we can get some support in terms of having a broader BRICS or a WTO minus the USA, if that can be created, that would be ideal. Because if a WTO minus the US is created and all of us levy tariff and the US, then US will be forced to retreat within 2 months. And therefore, the situation will come back to multilateral negotiation rather than the current bilateral negotiation. So these are the things that we have to worry about, because the trust deficit is enormous. People don't trust that China will not, dump. People don't trust that EU may not dump. Already the EU traders, they are trying to squeeze discount from Indians, because they say that you now have a surplus, so you also give us more discount. So Indian exporters are facing a tough time because they're already being squeezed. And if they are squeezed, then the workers will be squeezed. Okay. The government cannot give so much subsidy unless it raises more direct taxes. It is cutting the indirect taxes, so the deficit will go up. If the deficit goes up, then the expenditure on social sectors will go down. Rural employment, education, health will go down. So the workers' general condition will decline. So what the government needs to do is, if it wants to, play an important role, it has to raise more resources through direct taxes. So it has to raise more through wealth tax, estate duty, gift tax, income tax, etc. Because if it raises more resources, then only we'll be able to spend. If the fiscal deficit starts going up, it'll start cutting on education, health, etc., as it usually does. So they'll react back on the. So we need a macro package. The macro package at the budget has to be raise more resources through direct taxes and spend on employment generation schemes, which are rural employment guarantee scheme, education, health, rural development, agriculture. And that will then give a boost to the entire economy, and therefore the unemployment will rise as a result of exports going down. That can be countered by internal demand going up and employment being generated. So macro package is needed. What we do is we talk sectorally, we talk about individual industries, we talk about what banks will do, but I think that's not good enough. Overall, resource raising is very important if in difficult times we are to give a package of support in a broader sense. Otherwise, there'll be contradictions that will come up in different part of policy.
Okay. Thank you, Professor. I take your point on board, and this may sound slightly contradictory to that, but I want to ask Comrade Franco, before you leave, if you want to reflect on something that was mentioned by another speaker about the windfall profits that Reliance Industries and other refiners made because of discounted Russian crude. So in a sense, common sensically speaking, we can see that somebody benefited disproportionately from something which became a reason, which was at least touted as being the reason for something which is impacting a lot of people. So should not we tax Reliance to raise resources for a comprehensive package from the government side in responding to this crisis?
See, a true government which is for the people, by the people, of the people would do that. But today we have a government which is by the corporates, for the corporates, of the corporates. So anything which will affect Adani or Ambani, they are not going to touch at all. We can only demand, but we will not be able to unless we have a force or unless the youth in Nepal or Bangladesh or Sri Lanka agitated, such kind of massive agitations takes place. Though I am critical of those also, but massive uprising is needed. That's one point. Second is, I agree with Dr. Arun Kumar that different schemes can be brought only by the government to support the larger masses. Once upon a time, we had an integrated rural development program, which helped crores of people in the grassroots to increase their income, and that way they're increasing their purchasing power. So like that, this government should come up with new schemes to support. The regional cooperation, yes, it will be, in my opinion, that is needed, especially as somebody was suggesting, I think Clifton suggested that the north-south divide is there. The South should join together and come up with ideas. BRICS Bank was created with that idea, but it has just towed the line of World Bank and IMF and not doing anything great. And within BRICS or within ASEAN, we are not trusted now. This Modi government is not trusted. So, like already pointed out in the meeting held at the Brazil on the BRICS meeting, Jaishankar was saying that we don't require an alternative to dollar, whereas all the other BRIC countries are proposing that. Latin American countries were proposing that. Europe created the euro because they wanted a competition to dollar, though they have not succeeded much because of many factors which we cannot now discuss. But today what we require is to change this government, and unless the government is changed, these policies are only going to affect the larger masses. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. There's just one last interesting observation that has come, so I just wanted to share that with you, and I wanted to ask Comrade Vaida to provide us her reflections as closing comments to this session on this observation. And the observation was that the tariffs are going to have regionally dispersed effects. We've been speaking in terms of industry, but we also have many of these industries, most of them, are powered by migrant labor. So its effect might be Karnataka and Tamil Nadu might be seeing a lot of revenue in a sense go away, but in terms of workers going back, it will also be to the northern states, etc. So in a sense, the question was, how should left forces be raising this also in source regions of workers where we know also that even in UP, for instance, the carpet and leather and textile industry is big, but UP, Bihar, etc. in terms of industrial stock, they're not as much, but workers are coming from there. So how is it that left forces should be sort of raising this even in source areas? Comrade Vaida, if you have anything you want to share in response to that, and then we can close the session. Comrade? Okay, it's possible she might not be with us just now. Is there any other reflection that anyone would like to share? Yes, Comrade.
See, I am seeing at least in Tamil Nadu, which is going to be one of the states affected most because textiles, automobiles, fish export, these and some of the electronic goods, Tamil Nadu had been doing well. So already the state government has taken some effort. They are negotiating, talking to the concerned industry forums, and trying to see what kind of support they can give. And they might also put in a word with the bank, like in the bank itself, they created a new scheme for the state government employees, which was unique, which was their own effort. So like that, Tamil Nadu, some efforts are on, but more role has to be played only by the union government. Most of the tax is going to them, so they have to act. I think Dr. Arun want to say something. With that, we can.
What I wanted to say was that creating new markets is always difficult. I was in a panel discussion where the head of the MSME from Ludhiana was there, and he was saying that you cannot do it overnight because you need to set up chains, you need to have distributorships, you need to do some negotiations and so on. Government is trying to say that we'll create market in Africa, we'll trade more with Africa, but that'll take time. So the question is, in the immediate, you see, the exporters need immediate help. And that's where I think what Comrade Franco was saying, Comrade Raghunathan was saying would help, that, we need some support. But as I said, to give that support, you need to raise more taxes. And for that, direct taxes will be required because you are going to be cutting indirect taxes through GST. Unfortunately, this cutting of rates in GST is going to benefit the organized sector, not the unorganized sector, because the unorganized sector was already out of GST. So the demand shift from the unorganized sector to the organized sector that has been taken place because of demonetization, GST, etc., is going to aggravate. So unemployment in the unorganized sector will further increase. And that's why it is very important that we actually create cooperatives of the unorganized sector. So like in Bhadoi of carpets, like in Tirupur of the textile units, etc. So they can collectively bargain for, credit, for marketing, and for finance, and for technology. So I think it's very important that we request the organized sector people to also help in the organization of the unorganized, because the organized sector people have the capability. So there has to be a linkage between the organized and the unorganized sector workers. There has to be a linkage with the farmers, because the farmers would benefit if the workers get higher wages, because the demand for food will go up, price will go up above the MSP. So there is an important thing about linking up the farmers to the workers, and especially the youth. Among the unorganized and among the farmers, the women, the unemployment is the maximum. The labor force participation amongst women is very low. So we need to cater to this unorganized sector where the women and the youth is finding difficulty in finding employment. So I think an overall effort where every section comes together, all the marginalized sections come together. Because without that, I think the consciousness rising will not take place. If you have to pressurize the government, consciousness has to rise. This consciousness raising will come from the organized sector. The government is not going to do it. Industry is not going to do it. So this consciousness and the empowerment of the unorganized sector has to come from the trade unions. And therefore, the trade unions have a very important role to play at this juncture if India is to face the crisis it is facing.
Thank you, Professor. There's one last question that has come. I don't know if there is any response to it that we may have just now, but the question is from Prasad Chako. He's asking, do you have any information on any meetings that the government has announced or conducted with industry and labor unions to discuss measures to be taken to protect labor in this context? So to protect labor particularly, I have not actually heard any or read any reportage. There is meetings that have been conducted with industry organizations for the protections that can be given, especially with exporters or associations. If Comrade Veda is with us, she can say if unions have been invited to
what
it
you
or
are
not.
saying is
to my
correct.
knowledge, they haven't.
Okay. No, Mr. Usman. There have been no meetings at all called by the government to discuss with the trade unions. We are demanding, we have written all the central trade unions together have written to the government, and AITUC in particular also has written a separate letter demanding that all stakeholders should be brought in together, including the trade unions, to discuss about it and how to redress.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for sharing that, comrade. And thank you to everyone who has joined and who has stayed, and to all our speakers for taking out their time in today evening to present their views to us. We will, from the forum's side, we will try and write a quick statement, which is kind of based on the presentations that were made today, and circulate it among our members and more widely as well in India. So thank you once again for sharing all your valuable insights and for staying on this long. Thank you.
Thanks to the organizers for organizing the meeting. Okay, all the best. Bye.
Okay, Zindabad.
Thank you.